For the past few years, I've been working as a janitor at a popular fast food place. I don't take orders or do anything except clean. Because I work overnight, I don't see many other workers. At the restaurant, everything needs a deep clean every day, but it's hard to do that when it's open. Usually, nothing happens during my shifts except for the occasional customer knocking on the window to ask if we're still open. So on this particular night, I came in and started working as usual. A couple of other employees were still there when I arrived, but by 10, which was an hour after closing, it was just me for the rest of the night. I put on my headphones and started cleaning the grills and getting everything ready to be hosed down. After a while, I lost track of time, but I think it was around midnight when I heard a knock at the front of the building. I took off my headphones and heard it again. I walked to the front, thinking someone might be there to check if we were closed, but when I looked, nobody was there. I went up to the door and looked out at the parking lot, but there were no cars or people. I was sure I heard it from this side of the building, so I waited to hear it again, but there was nothing. I figured I must have heard another sound and went back to work. After another hour or so, I took a lunch break. I grabbed my lunch bag and sat at one of the tables in the dining area, taking my time since I was ahead on my cleaning. When I finished eating, I went to get the mop from the back. That's when I saw a man's face staring at me through the drive-through window. He had messy hair and a blank expression, but his eyes, there was something eerie about them, like they were empty. I froze for a moment, and then the man calmly walked away. My heart was pounding, and I just stood there, listening to his footsteps fade away. I didn't know what to make of it. It was just really creepy and weird. Once I felt more confident, I opened the window to check if he was gone. It was dark outside, but I couldn't see anyone, so I closed and locked it. I was nervous for the next hour, constantly glancing at the windows, feeling like someone was watching me. But as my shift was ending, I started to relax a bit, and the anxiety faded away. One of the last things I had to do was take out all the garbage bags to the dumpster, which I was putting off for as long as possible. Before stepping out, I checked the window and it seemed clear. So, I quickly opened the door and started taking out the garbage. I was throwing the bags into the dumpster when, after less than 20 seconds, the man suddenly appeared from around the corner. I stopped and asked him what he needed, but he didn't answer. He walked up to me with the same empty stare. Now that I could see his whole body, though, he was even more frightening. He was a fairly large man wearing a dirty and stained coat. Not knowing what else to do, I ran for the door. I opened it just as the man's footsteps rushed up behind me. I slammed the door shut, but he managed to stick his arm through the gap, stopping it from closing completely. I turned and sprinted to the other end of the restaurant, grabbing my keys and unlocking the front door as quickly as possible. I heard the man getting closer as I barely managed to escape again. I ran across the parking lot as fast as I could while calling the police for help. 5 minutes later, the police arrived at the restaurant, but the man was gone. We checked the CCTV footage, but we couldn't identify him. It showed that after I ran away, the man just stood there and watched me for a while, then left through the back door. We don't know what he wanted from me, but his creepy and scary behavior still gives me chills to this day. I was working at my desk in a room full of desks. As I typed on my laptop, I started feeling sleepy. After struggling to stay awake, I decided to make some coffee in the break room. I turned on the machine and leaned against the table, barely able to keep my eyes open as the coffee poured into the mug. Suddenly, a loud thud jolted me awake. It sounded like it came from downstairs and echoed through the building. But there was nothing else, just that one noise. I hesitated at the doorway, wondering if I should check it out. I was so tired that I figured it was probably just something falling downstairs and chose not to investigate. I grabbed my coffee and went back to my desk to keep working. I sat there for an hour, working non-stop, but the coffee didn't help my sleepiness. I kept trying to power through it, but I knew I couldn't keep it up. Eventually, I dozed off at my desk. When I woke up, I felt irritated and dizzy, like I'd been rudely awakened from a deep sleep. As I got my bearings, I noticed a faint beeping sound coming from somewhere in the building. It beeped every 4 or 5 seconds. I checked my laptop and saw it was nearly 2 a.m. I decided it wasn't worth trying to work anymore, so I packed up and left the room to investigate the beeping and to go home. As I reached the stairwell, the beeping started to unsettle me. I'd never heard it before, and it gave me an eerie feeling. Maybe I was too tired earlier to fully notice it. I walked down the staircase, and the beeping got louder. When I looked down the long main hallway, I saw a metal rod lying on the ground in front of the open entrance door. My blood ran cold as I realized the door should be locked and the beeping was from the building's security system. Acting on instinct, I ran to the opposite end of the hallway and out the back door. I got into my car and called for help. Even after I left the building, what I found out next was even scarier. The police searched around but didn't find anyone or anything suspicious. Then we checked the security cameras. At 11 p.m., a man could be seen walking up and breaking the door open with a single hit from some kind of tool, making the loud bang I heard while getting coffee. He then quietly moved around the first floor and went up to the second, where he entered the office I was in. He stood quietly only a few feet behind me while I was working at my desk. Later, he went back downstairs, and when I fell asleep, he returned, walking around the whole office. He even came up to me and searched around my desk. It's not clear if he stole anything, as there weren't cameras in every room, but there didn't seem to be any obvious explanation for why he was there. After seeing the security tapes, I've never stayed alone at that office again. I work at a gas station in my town's middle. My shifts change, but I usually work at night and early morning. I've been there for a year now and mostly like it. It's a regular job where I stand for 8 hours and talk to customers sometimes. This time, I was working overnight from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. Nights are usually quiet, especially on weekdays. But it was raining, so I thought it might be even quieter than usual. For the first few hours, I sat behind the cash register waiting for customers. A few came to pay for gas with cash, but after around 12:30 to 1 o'clock, it got really quiet. Hardly anyone came inside, and there were few cars getting gas outside. With no customers, I started straightening up the shelves to pass the time. While I was doing that, I saw headlights from a car pulling in to get gas, but I didn't pay much attention. It seemed like just another customer. I kept fixing the shelves for about 10 minutes before I casually glanced out the window. The car was still parked at one of the pumps, and a man stood beside it. When I glanced out and he noticed, he moved away, showing he was looking at me. It made me feel uneasy, especially since he'd been there supposedly pumping gas for 10 minutes. I went back to the counter, then peeked out again 30 seconds later. I saw the man getting into his car. The headlights blinked a few times like he was having trouble starting it. Eventually, he managed to get it going and quickly drove off. I stood at the window for a minute, feeling uneasy. Something didn't feel right. I decided to check the recent transactions for the pump he used. The last transaction was hours ago. He had been there for 10 minutes without pumping gas, just watching me. I stayed behind the counter, hoping to wait out the rest of my shift. A few more cars came and went, but then it got quiet again for a while. At about 3 a.m., I heard something outside. The rain was loud, but I could barely hear a rhythmic shuffling noise footsteps moving along the side of the building toward the back. I tried to look out the window, but I couldn't see well. I did notice that there were no cars in the parking lot or by the pumps, though. I left the counter quickly and went to the back door. It was a heavy metal door with no windows. I pressed my ear against it and heard the footsteps getting louder until they were right outside. I looked at the handle, waiting in silence. It turned slowly but got caught by the lock. It went quiet again for almost a minute. Then I heard a man's voice grunting in frustration. There was a sudden, sharp sound, then footsteps moving away from the door and back to the side of the gas station. I rushed back to the front, hoping to catch sight of them leaving, but they were gone. I acted fast and called 911 on the store phone, hoping the police could catch him before he got away. I didn't know what was going on, but someone trying to get in through the back door had to mean trouble. When the cops arrived, they didn't find the man, but they did find a car on the side of the road, less than a quarter mile away. It was the same car I'd seen earlier with the man who was watching me. It had run out of gas and had different license plates. Turns out, the guy was from 2 states over and his car had been reported missing. They also found a long scrape across the back door, likely made by a sharp object, maybe a knife. Knowing all this, I realized I was very lucky. The man was probably already on the run and could have been planning something dangerous.